Hey guys, my name is Chelsea and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we're going to be going over my June wrap-up. So I only got to 6 books in June, which is not horrible. It's just a little bit less than I had been doing for like the last couple months. We're gonna jump right on into it. It was sort of a mixed month for me, but let's take a look at the books. So the first 2 books that I read this month were not actually part of my official TBR. I just sort of picked up a couple like books. One is a graphic novel and one is a manga that I just wanted to read in between the end of last month and the filming of my TBR video where I had my best friend pick my TBR. So these were more just sort of fun in between. The first book I read was Pixie Dust. This is by Russell Nohelty and Nicholas Torres. This is a graphic novel that I ended up giving, I want to say, 3 stars. I do believe it could be like a 2.5. I was a little bit disappointed in this. This is one that I actually purchased when I went to Phoenix Comic Fest this year, and so this is an independently published graphic novel. The concept sounded very interesting. It's about a pixie who ends up being killed like on an assignment. She's sort of like an assassin sort of character, and she comes back from the dead to take out her revenge. So that sounded pretty weird and amazing, and I was very intrigued by it, so I had to pick this up. The art style of this is not one that I would normally read. I was still very interested in the storyline. However, I felt that the writing style was very stilted. This book is, I believe, less than 100 pages, and I really do think that there was a lot of potential for this one. It was just very rushed, maybe. I don't know if it was just because there were so few pages in it, but the overall story arc seemed to go by very, very quickly. There was a lot of skips and jumps in sort of, not even in the timeline, but more in the motivations of the characters that I just didn't quite understand. There were certain things in here that were just super, super quick. They should have been developed more. There was one part in here, I'm going to give a spoiler just so you guys know, but there was one part in here where our character thought she was an orphan for almost her whole life, and she meets her mother, and I still don't even know if that was actually a true story or not, but she meets her mother, and within 1 page, they are like best friends, bawling their eyes out that they were so happy that each other existed, and then in a couple more pages, her mother died, and she is acting like the most devastated thing has ever happened in her life, and she has just met this woman. For me, personally, that was just not believable. There was a couple other things that you have to suspend your reality on, just because, again, it seemed like everything happened so quickly. Like, if this was a long, like, even twice as long, I think this would have been developed really, really well. I was so excited to read this, and it was just something that was sort of a disappointment. The writing style, like I said, was a little bit stilted. It just sort of felt like everything was told to you. Like, she went in and she had these like quirky one-liners that I just didn't feel fit the story very well. Everything was very, here I'm doing this, and then I'm doing this, and then I'm doing this. I think the author had a great vision, and he obviously had a timeline of like what he wanted to get into this book, but it just did not really work for me. And then the second book that I read before my actual like TBR was Mermaid Boys Volume 1. This is by Yomi Sarachi. This is a manga that is sort of like a gender-bent twist on The Little Mermaid. We have a merman who is like supposed to be the most handsome guy in the ocean. He is forbidden to go up to the human world, and he decides he wants to go anyway. He like fell in love with a human girl up there. He ends up meeting an Ursula type character who uses their magic to send him up to the top. Instead of losing his voice, he loses his good looks. And so hilarious things obviously ensue because he ends up looking like a less mature version of himself. This one I did give 4 stars, and I've already purchased the 2nd volume of it. I'm very interested in Little Mermaid retellings right now. I think it all has to do with To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo, which was really, really, really good. And this is just a sort of cute, silly version of it where our mermaid is a guy. And then moving on to the books that were actually part of the TBR that my friend David picked out, we have The Leaving. This is by Tara Altebrando. This is a book that I was expecting to like more than I did. I do think I gave this 3 stars. It could have moved down to about a 2.5. There were some aspects of this I really liked, and then there were other aspects that I did not like at all. This is supposed to be dealing with a group of children who were taken / disappeared when they were in kindergarten. There was a group of 6 of them, and then I believe it's like 11 years later, 5 of them come back. So 1 is missing. They don't have any memory whatsoever. And so this was billed as a sort of like mystery to that. And I want to say that the mystery was interesting. However, I felt it was very, very rushed at the end. I wish there would have been a little bit more conclusion to it. But there's also 3 different point of view protagonists here. We have 2 of them that were part of the group of 6 that were taken, which are going to be Scarlett and Lucas. And then we also have Avery, who is Max's sister, and Max is the kid that does not come back. I actually really, really liked Scarlett and Lucas's points of view in here. Because they don't have memory of certain things, their writing style, or I guess the author's writing style for their chapters, is very non-conventional. They have little bits and pieces that are very different in the books. Scarlett has little pieces where they're like ticks to denote like time or stuff that she is like thinking about, but like nothing's coming up. She'll also have little pieces that are not the traditional prose in the book. And then Lucas has these black boxes which denote memories that he is currently having, but they're usually like fragments of something, so it's not in complete sentences, and I really, really enjoyed those parts of the book. Avery, however, I did not really understand what her point of view was there for. The only thing I really got from her was a whiny teenager, but not only that, she seemed to force a romance with these characters. So keep in mind that these characters were kidnapped in kindergarten, and Avery is about a year younger, so she was, I think they said 4, and the other characters were 5. 11 years later they come back, so those characters are probably about 16 and Avery is 15. And this should have been a mystery. I think if she would have stuck to that, it would have been really, really good. However, Avery, like the first day after the group comes back, falls in love with Lucas and has it in her mind that he is in love with her. They had a connection when they were kids, and she can't believe that anybody else would be in a relationship with him, and like he is hers, and I don't understand that at all. First of all, she was 4 when they disappeared, and it's been 11 years. 11 years ago was in the middle of high school, and for me, and I remember some of that, but not everything. I don't understand how she can remember all these little details from when he was 5 and she was 4. But also, I don't understand how 11 years later she can feel like they have a connection, and within 2 days she wants to date him, and he better not be like dating any other girls. I think the romance element was just not good for me. If that was out of the book completely, this probably would have gotten a higher rating. I just did not like it. I did not like thinking about these kids who were teenagers but have been missing almost their entire lives, and then having a romance in there. It just didn't quite work for me. I would read other things by this author because I think her writing style is actually really, really nice, especially for the points of view of Scarlett and Lucas. I just did not like Avery as a character and the romance that was sort of forced on the characters in this. The next one I read was The Sacred Lies of Minnow, and this is by Stephanie Oakes. I did give this a 4 out of 5 stars. This is a very interesting book for me because I didn't know too much about it going in. I knew a little bit. I knew that this follows a girl who was raised in a cult, and for whatever reason she ends up escaping, but she does not have hands by the time she escapes. And so that was pretty much all I knew. The other part of this that you guys probably would like to know is that it does start off with her, like, going to jail for beating up a guy after she escapes. And then it's a whole sort of mystery about how she grew up in the cult and her life there, and if she had any friends, and how she escaped. And it's very, very interesting. I did give it a 4 stars because I don't think I could give it any higher than that, but it is definitely not lower than that. It was very intriguing, and it's not typically the type of book I would read, but it was so interesting to read. Like, I don't even know if I can explain it very much, but she had a personality that was very outside of the other characters, obviously, because she's in a place where the other characters are more in a normalized society, and she came from a cult area. And I don't know, it was just a very intriguing read. There were some very disturbing bits in there. There's probably going to be some trigger warning stuff. If you guys are interested, let me know and I will let you guys know. But this is one of the most different books I have read lately, and I really enjoyed it. And then I also read The Fixes. This is by Owen Matthews. This one I also gave 4 stars. I could see it getting a little closer to 4.5 maybe. This is one that follows our main character of Eric, who is pretty much the typical goody-goody student at school. And then right after his senior year, he meets some friends, some past friends, and some like new acquaintances that become friends. And it sort of turns into Heathers. This is a very interesting book because of the fact that it does have a very interesting writing style. This is one of my favorite writing styles, I think, of the books that I have read this month. Each chapter is usually only like a page, maybe 2 pages long. They're very short, it's very broken up, but the narrator in here is also a completely different narrator, it feels like, than the characters in the book. It's not even really like a third-person omniscient. It's more like a narrator is telling you this story. And the narrator is quite comedic as well. Like, they'll insert little hints about foreshadowing, and some of them are obvious hints, but the narrator does it in a way that is actually like sort of a joke, like he's joking about bombs and that kind of stuff, because the characters in here that are sort of like the Heatheristic characters, like characters from the movie Heathers, they're trying to fix the world by doing bad things that are sort of destructive and all that, and Eric gets caught up in it a little bit. I did not really like any of the characters. Like, they're morally gray characters, which is great. Like, they're not likable people. But it's a wild ride from start to finish. I did like the fact that we had great diversity in here. Eric is LGBTQ, and he is sort of discovering that as he goes through here. He likes the main guy in their group, and this is just a really, really, like, I felt like it was a mix between a normal like 80s John Hughes teenage movie and Heathers, because we had like those cliquey type of elements and like the parties and like the normal teenage stuff that you see in those like classic movies, but then you have like really, really good Heather vibes, and I loved that movie. So this is a wild ride. Again, this is not going to be something that is like a super happy book. It's not going to be something where you're going to be like loving all the characters, because it is such a morally gray thing, but the writing style on this, I think, was my favorite part. I absolutely loved it. I will definitely read more by this author. And so this was just a really interesting, fun, crazy ride. And then the last book that I read this month is Free Chocolate. This one here, I think I've decided I'm giving 2 stars. I usually save my 1 stars for books that I DNF, and I really, really considered doing that to this one. So I did move it up 1 star because of the fact that I finished it, and it does get better in the last like 1/3 of the book. But this is a book that is billed as a sci-fi soap opera. So we are supposed to have sci-fi elements, and based on the cover, I would assume we have alien characters, and I was expecting, I know I shouldn't have been, but I was expecting more almost like Mass Effect elements, like somebody that's out in space, and some parts of it are action-y, and then some parts of it are like almost like domestic, real-life sort of things, and this one was more confusing. So the whole premise of this is that Earth is now out in space. I don't even know what year this is supposed to be, but people go, they travel to other planets. Our main character is a culinary student on a different planet, and chocolate is the one commodity that Earth has like a stranglehold on. You cannot get it from anywhere else. They do not let other aliens onto Earth because they're afraid that people are going to steal chocolate, and it's this whole thing. Well, our main character, along with her boyfriend, who is not quite human but sort of looks that way, decide that they're going to steal Cocoa Pods the next time she goes to Earth to give it to the rest of the galaxy to hopefully get all the bad stigma away from Earth and just sort of spread happiness and cheer. So I'm going to read you a little bit from the summary on the back. So it says, Latina culinary arts student Bo Benitez becomes a fugitive when she's caught stealing a priceless cocoa pod from a heavily defended plantation. That's the first sentence of the summary. That first sentence did not come to fruition until like page 150 or 160 out of a 400-page book. That is way too long to think about stealing chocolate and set up the stealing of the chocolate and then finally steal the chocolate and try and run away. I don't know why it took so long. Also, we have 3 characters on the front, and from what I understand, we obviously have Beau, who is our female on here. We have her boyfriend Brill, who is the humanoid-looking man, and then we also have a reptilian cop. Now, this is a character named Tyson, and for somebody who's on the cover, and part of the reason that I picked up the book, he only is in like 3 scenes total in the whole book. He shows up like in the middle-ish for a little bit, and then at the very end. That's it. I don't know exactly what happened. Also, I did not like the fact that she is a bilingual protagonist. And by that, I don't mean that I don't like bilingual protagonists or anything like that. She wasn't really a bilingual protagonist because she apparently knew every language on Earth and every language in space. She knew Spanish and English and apparently Galactic Standard and also her boyfriend's alien language, and other characters knew Spanish who were also aliens. I don't know. She knew so much. And so she would just throw that in there. I'm gonna pull up a sentence that I read and read it to you guys, and I will let you guys decide what you like about that or not, because I just could not stand it. Okay, are we ready? So this is after she had been semi-caught trying to steal Cocoa Pods. And so she said that it hurts to say that word out loud, execution, so vague, so cold. I'd almost rather he shoot me right here than have to face being paraded out for everyone to watch. This white blouse is so low cut it shows off a good bit of décolletage, and the word nut in my brain can't help but connect it by way of the Latin root word column for neck, to decollate, an old-fashioned word to say beheaded. I'm sorry, but one, I don't understand why she goes straight from execution to how much cleavage is showing, but also, that's just the author like proving that she knows Latin, or at least that one word in Latin. I just don't understand. I also didn't like our main character was very, I guess, fight or flighty. It happened so often in this. Apparently there's a character in here who is her RA at culinary school, who is a type of alien that looks sort of cat-like. And every single time she sees this character, she like flips her shit. She like falls over herself and scrambles to get away and like makes audible gasping sounds, and she's known this girl for however long she's been going to culinary school. And I mean, I understand, yes, sometimes there's probably a fight or flight response and your like heart gets going and you get anxious for certain things, but if you know somebody, especially since this is a person, it's not just like an animal that looks scary that you don't know their personality, she knows her, and every single time, even when this girl is helping her, she like is more scared of her than anything else in this entire book, even when she's like getting like shot at. I don't know, there were so many things wrong with this book. And yet I finished it because I wanted to see the aliens. And yes, there are some aliens near the end. Probably the last third of it was bearable. But I don't want to have to wade through the crappy bilingual English to Spanish in here and give myself a headache. Because one thing that I did not like, I don't know if this author is bilingual or if she is Hispanic or not. I don't know. But I felt that she wasn't using the Spanish like in her best way, because there were definitely sentences in here where the Spanish sounded okay. Like saying un poco for something instead of just a little. Like those are fine. The one thing I also didn't like is there was a sentence in here, and it was one of my biggest pet peeves for whatever reason, but the main character talks about somebody blowing her a kiss. Instead of saying a kiss, she says a beso. And so yes, beso is kiss, but at the same time, why wouldn't you say un beso instead of a beso? It doesn't work. The article should match the language that you're using. Like un poco is a little in Spanish. Un beso is a kiss instead of saying a beso. I don't know. The way that it was used just took me completely out of the story, and I'm so sad about it because this cover is absolutely gorgeous. This was the main reason I picked up the book. I shouldn't have done that without researching it more, but apparently there's only like 9 actual reviews on Goodreads. So this is a book that not very many people have actually read. And now I'm just ranting, and so I'm very sorry about that. If you guys want more opinions on this, I can make it its own video. I am so sorry that I've just been ranting about this. Out of all the books I read this month, this is the worst one. And because it was the worst one, I didn't get to any books after this. This one took me a while to read. I actually read the fixes in the middle of this. I also ended up reading a bunch of graphic novels in the middle. I actually did a whole separate video of that on marathoning my graphic novels, and I did all the reviews in that video. I think I read over 10 of them, but I'm at the point where it's not even quite the end of the month yet. It's like 1 or 2 days before, and I can't physically pick up any other books right now because I'm still trying to get over this one. So I think I'm just going to end up trying to pick my new TBR for next month and jump into one of those, because I was so disappointed in this that I can't even look at the rest of the TBR pile that my friend picked out for me. I'm so disappointed because the cover is gorgeous, and I don't like trashing books or anything, but my husband had a good idea. If I just like the cover, maybe I should just like cut the cover out and put it somewhere. I know it might be blasphemy to say, but I might do that. We'll see. Apparently this is also having a sequel come out eventually. I don't know if I want to pick that up just to hate read it, but I'm sorry. I know there's people that like this book. I just did not like a lot of the elements in here. Oh, also, one of the biggest elements that I hated that I forgot completely to tell you, she cheats on her boyfriend and then feels bad about it. And while she's cheating on him, she wants her boyfriend and to like kiss her boyfriend, but then when she's with her boyfriend, she's also concerned about the other people that she's been kissing on. That is a big pet peeve for me. I don't understand where if you're actually in love with somebody, how you can justify kissing around on other people and then saying, oh, but I love my boyfriend. Especially since she really hurt him in this. I can't. I'm sorry, again, I'm ranting, but not only was this book not written in a way that I like, and it took forever to get started, she cheated on her boyfriend. And the reptilian cop that I wanted to read about was barely in the book. Maybe 20 pages total. So, very disappointing. I need to put this down before I start ranting and raving again. And so those were the books that I read this month. If you guys liked this video, give it a thumbs up to let me know. Subscribe to this channel if you would like to see more videos. I do have videos up every Monday and Thursday, so I will see you then. Bye!